Hey guys, this is Ira Schofel, managing editor of Warchant.com, and this is a new feature we're bringing to you on the channel at Warchant TV and also at Warchant.com. It's going to be a feature called Now You Nole, and it's basically going to be interviews with former FSU athletes, former FSU coaches, people around the program, maybe people that weren't even athletes or coaches, just associated with the university, but have ties to Florida State, and kind of the reason for that name is in every interview we're going to touch on how they became a Nole, whether it's being recruited, talking about the recruiting process, or whether it's how why they grew up loving Florida State, or how they ended up being associated with the school. The first one we're doing is Brett Williams. If you are a longtime Florida State fan, you remember Brett Williams from the late 1990s, early 2000s. Really one of the biggest, most decorated offensive line signees Florida State has had in history. He went on to start for 4 years. He started as a redshirt freshman in 1999 on the national championship team, started throughout his career through 2002, earned multiple ACC honors, All-America honors, won the ACC Jacobs Blocking Trophy in 2001 and 2002, which is basically the best lineman in the ACC, went on to play in the NFL for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so we talk about all that. We go back into growing up a Florida State fan, what his recruitment was like, go back into that a little bit, talk about his career at Florida State. Again, couldn't have started any better. Played for a national championship in 99, played for the national championship in 2000. The Noles didn't win it, but they were 2 straight years in the national championship game. And then his last couple of years, you kind of started seeing the cracks in the foundation of Bobby Bowden's tenure as Florida State's head coach. But talk about Coach Bowden, his influence on Brett and his career. And then we move ahead to Brett's post-playing days as a coach. I hope you enjoyed the interview. I think Brett was a really cool dude to cover back in the day. Very smart guy, knows football, loves the Noles, and has a lot of really cool stories. So hopefully you enjoy this interview, and we'll get Now You Nole started with former Florida State star left tackle Brett Williams. So Brett, when you got to Florida State in '98, this is like peak dynasty. Florida State's already Florida State. I was curious, what was it like going in the locker room and seeing P-Dub and Corey Simon and all these dudes you had been watching on TV, and was your head spinning a little? Listening to Coach Bowden give pregame speeches and all. What was that like as a 18-year? I remember me as an 18-year-old. I couldn't do laundry. What was it like being thrust into that world?
Well, it was kind of like a dream. You felt like you were kind of, sleepwalking, like pinching yourself. Is this really happening? Yeah. Am I really here? I remember when two-a-days started my freshman year, I remember being so jazzed, and all the veteran guys there that have been there for years, two-a-days was tough. And so you'd get into two-a-days and, they would all, kind of have their heads down like, oh gosh, this is going to be 2 weeks of just absolute misery, and and I'm running around chipper like, come on guys, cheer up, man. We're playing football at Florida State, and they would always look at me. I remember Ross Brandon and some of those guys, and Jason Whitaker, they'd always look at me like, look at that freshman hope that he has.
we're going to break him of all that.
Yeah. He said, give him a week. He'll be with us, now. And
yeah.
So,
Right.
I think I lasted a little longer than a week there, but there was just a sense of like, is this really happening? This is so cool. Like, there's Coach Bowden, like, how did I get here? And then there's also a sense of just kind of a little insecurity. Like, you come out of high school and you're ranked, number 1, number 2 offensive lineman in the country, and you don't really know, like, do I really belong? Can I really play here? And we had such a deep roster, and defensive line you went against every day was amazing, to the point the games were easy. But when you're lining up against those guys, and you'd have good plays where coach was like, man, that was a great job for a freshman. You have other plays where you just got totally trounced. And so it was a big learning curve. And when I was playing too, you came in, I wasn't expecting to play until I was a junior.
Right. Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to, because you end up getting thrust into it as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah. So I went in thinking I've got time to develop. And
Right.
so I don't have to beat myself up that if I'm not picking up things, quick enough. Like the high school I went to, we ran the ball pretty much every play. And this was before the age of, 7-on-7 and lineman camps where, they're doing
Right.
pass blocking drills. I had no idea how to pass block when I got to Florida State. And so, and it's a completely different animal than, putting all your weight on your hand and coming off and smashing somebody. I was good at that. And so, but, learning how to, kick slide and block with your hands and keep your head out of a block and basically, get run over slowly, with good technique. It was against some of the best athletes in the country as far as what we had at D end and D line. And so that was a big learning curve for me. And so I excelled in the run blocking my freshman year. Pass blocking, I got absolutely whooped. And so didn't really start picking up the pass blocking until my next year, my redshirt freshman year, and learned a lot of that from doing scout team.
I bet. So in high school, like your senior year of high school, like what size were you?
I was probably the same size I was at Florida. I was 6'5".
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was 6'5", 325. When I got to Florida State, they trimmed it up more, made it a little more muscle than just baby weight. But yeah, I was really big. We had a weightlifting team in high school, so I was always in. My freshman year in high school, I came to a Florida State football camp, and Ronnie Cottrell there offered me a scholarship. He said, if you keep your grades up, you got a scholarship here. And so they were the first school to hop on me. And I grew up a Florida State fan anyways. And so all through high school, man, that was my dream. Like I got to get there. And so I was really committed to the weight room. So that's kind of what helped me in my early start at FSU. Is I came in pretty physically ready. It was more the technique stuff I had to catch up on.
So did you ever go up against dudes in high school that were a big challenge?
Not so much. We had a couple D linemen that, went to, smaller colleges and stuff, but they were never, never.
So lining up against the dudes in practice must have been just, a little bit of a shock.
Yeah, no. And I remember my first, board drill. I don't know if they still do board drills.
Not really. Like Norvell did one sort of board drill like in Jacksonville in preseason, but yeah, they don't do them like you guys used to do them. If you could describe them for people that have never seen a board drill.
Yeah. So they put this board, it was probably, I don't know, 7 foot long, 6 foot long, and, 6 inches wide. And, you had to straddle the board, and the defensive lineman was in front of you straddling the board as well. And so the goal was you had to drive the other guy off the board. And if your feet unstraddled the board, or you got thrown off the board, you lost the drill. And so basically it was like, there's no running. You've got to stay here. It's 1-on-1. And it's just a toughness drill, working on getting low, keeping your hands inside, getting good leverage, and keeping a wide base so you don't get, thrown off balance. And so my first day of full pads, Tony Bryant was defensive end, and I'm 325 pounds. He was probably 260, and I'm looking at him, and, he looked like a senior, though. And so I'm looking at him, though, and I'm like, I could probably take him. Like, this ain't going to be that bad. And I came off that board, and I tried to hit him as hard as I've ever hit anybody. And I remember he didn't budge. And I felt like this shock go down my back and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is a different level. Like that guy in high school, a 260-pound guy in high school, I would have taken him for a ride. This guy made me feel it in my soul. So it was a big jump.
So for people that were paying attention to Florida State football back then, they would remember your brother Blake played at Florida State too. So was your family, like, did your dad, was he an offensive lineman? Like, where did all this kind of come from?
No, he played high school and football, or played, football in high school, but, we just grew up a football family, started at a young age. He coached us in youth football. But yeah, we love the game. We're in Central Florida. Grew up around a lot of Gator fans, so I think that's probably what pushed me to Florida State. But but we love Bobby Bowden for as long as I could remember, and so yeah, we love football. Kissimmee, Osceola High School, where I went, everybody. It's grown a lot. The population is just down there now. But back when I was there, it was the closest thing to that movie Varsity Blues. You know,
Mhm.
it's like the whole town shut down for the football games, and it was a
Right.
big deal. So yeah, we love Florida State, love football since I can remember.
So did you have a choice on Florida State, or did your folks kind of push that on you, or where? Do you
No,
remember
they
how
were
you?
Yeah, they were great. They wanted me to look around. I took official visits to Alabama, which I had some fun stories there too, as far as my recruiting visit. Um, had visited the University of Florida, and just because they were 2 hours, down the road for me, even though I absolutely hated the Gators, but I was just like they were too good at the time not to take a look at them. And then Florida State, obviously. And I had visits scheduled to Tennessee and Notre Dame, but after like my third visit, I just got tired of taking visits. It's like, so I canceled it, shut it down after that.
I think I read one of the stories about your trip to Alabama? You went hunting, and
Oh yeah, so Alabama was, I mean, they knew how to put on a show, but they got put on recruiting probation the next year too. So maybe they were putting on too much of a show, but they picked me up. We had a little airport behind my high school, and so they
Mhm.
picked me up in a jet behind my
Wow.
high school. And so, I had my suitcase to go on this visit in the locker,
Yeah.
my locker room at the high school. So get on this jet, they take me there. There was only one other guy, I can't remember his name, but he's a D lineman from Miami. They picked him up in Miami and they flew us, to Tuscaloosa, and we get off the plane, do all the dinners and all that stuff. And the next day they were like, "Hey, do you want to go hunting or do you want to go to a basketball game?" And I'm like, "Hunting, let's go." So they took me to, I don't know if it was a Boosters, ranch or something they had out there. And I literally had to, first of all, typically in hunting, you get up in a tree stand or sit on a little
Right.
ground blind or something like that. They had basically like a hotel type shooting house built out in the old woods with, a spiral staircase going up to it. And I had to chase deer away to get into the,
It was like
yeah,
it was a stock. You're fishing in a stock pond.
yeah. And I'm
Uh,
sitting there, and it was almost, we joked, it was almost like they were letting out a new deer to walk in front of me every 15 minutes. First it was a 2-point, then a 4-point, then a 6-point, and then finally a big 8-point came out. And I
uh,
shot it, and it was the biggest deer I've ever killed up to that point. And I was just on cloud nine, and I was like, how can I say no to this place? Not realizing in high school, when you get to college, they ain't taking you hunting anymore.
you're not gonna be spending your Saturday mornings out there every week
Yeah, but
or
funny
Sunday mornings.
story about that. So DeBose, their head coach, after my official visit, he did his in-home visit. So he came to visit me, and Dabo Sweeney was actually a graduate assistant there.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he came too, and they're at my house, and they brought me the deer head so I could get it mounted. And I still have it to this day. But Steve Spurrier came on his in-home visit to visit me a week later after Alabama did. Well, I mentioned to Steve Spurrier that I killed this deer, and they brought me the deer head. Well, Steve Spurrier turned them in for recruiting violation because they didn't make me pay shipping and handling on the deer head.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so as much as I liked the University of Florida's offensive line coach at the time, when that happened, I was just like, man, I can't do this Spurrier guy.
That's classic Spurrier. Because
I kind of like Steve now. I kind of like his personality now, but at the time I didn't.
that was the thing. I think back then he like turned in several schools, and in the SEC that never happened. Like everybody was a
Yeah,
code among thieves. Nobody would ever turn anybody else in until he
yeah,
got
they
there.
started NIL, so
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it from them.
So did you when you start playing at Florida State, as you said, you didn't expect to play right away, but as a redshirt freshman, you end up getting thrust in, I guess injuries
Yeah,
kind of opened the door.
I was third string left tackle. Ross Brannon was the starter at the time, and then Donald Heaven
Mm-hmm.
was the second string guy. Well, Ross had reoccurring knee problems. He eventually had to quit playing because his knees got so bad. And I'm still friends with Ross to this day, and so we talk, on a weekly basis. But yeah, he had to basically hang it up. He tried to hang in there and see if he could get back, but he couldn't. And I think it was the third game of the year. Donald Heaven was the starting left tackle. We were playing North Carolina, and I think it was this halfway through the second quarter, he sprained his ankle, and I'm sitting on the bench. I think I was looking at the cheerleaders or something, and I hear everybody yelling, Brett, Brett, Brett. And I get up to go into the game, or not realizing what was happening. I think I got up and ran like 5 or 6 steps without remembering to grab my helmet. So I had to go back and grab my helmet. And so I was total freshman mode. But they put me in there, and I played pretty well that game, and ended up just starting the next 4 years after that.
And so you end up, later in your career, you win the Jacobs Blocking Trophy, which is the top blocker in the ACC, the top offensive lineman in the ACC 2 times, a bunch of all ACC, All America honors, and all that. But towards the end of your career, well, your first 2 years, I mean, you win a national championship in '99, play for the national championship in 2000. So you got to be thinking this is just how it is at Florida State. It's going to be like this forever. But then towards the end of your career, things kind of, 2002, 1 and 2, things kind of go off the rails a little bit. Was that, what was it like being in the middle of it? Because, you were there from the heights to, and it wasn't like bad. Like people at the time acted like Florida State was, just terrible in the 2000s, but you guys were still winning 9-10 games. But what was it like kind of seeing things kind of, start to falter a little bit?
Well, it was kind of bewildering, honestly. You wanted to go out, the standards were so high.
Right.
Like in '99 when we won the national championship, I always tell people, they're like, what was it like to win a national championship? And I said, well, it was a little bit of joy, but mostly relief.
Right.
Mostly relief that we finally lived up to what we were supposed to do, And so right. That was kind of the expectations. And so,
could you feel the pressure like during the '99 season? Could you feel?
I felt the pressure as a redshirt freshman, not wanting to blow it for Chris Winkie and, Peter Warwick. I was there in '98 when we lost to Tennessee, but I wasn't on the field. And so I had paid the price that these seniors have been paying for years trying to get there. And so I didn't feel it as much. But, I certainly felt it after the national championship game. You storm the field. You're like, yeah, we won. And then that lasts for about 5 minutes. And then it was just a sense of relief, like, we did it, And so, but anyways, going into my, junior and senior year, we hit some struggles. And my senior year was really tough. I think so much of it hinged on that Miami game. We came so close to beating them, and we just ran the ball down their throats that game. We had just an awesome offensive line, and we were so hungry. And they had a great D-line. I think everybody on their D-line got drafted, and we just grinded them up. And so that game, I think we left it all on the field to come up short. I think it was – it was heartbreaking. It was kind of a gut punch, I think, to all of us. And I don't know. Yeah, it was a strange – strange year. Looking back, you try to figure out, well, what went wrong, or, and then I look back, it's like we lost 4 games.
Right.
But
people had no idea how bad things could get.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
Well, that Miami game, man. So that was one of the most dominating rushing performances I've still ever seen, especially against a great defense. And you guys it felt like you guys ran for 500 yards. I mean, Greg Jones and your guys' offensive linemen, your guys' offensive line just dominated. And it's almost like, how did that happen? Like, how did you guys lose? Because it felt like you controlled the whole game. And then obviously it ends up with the wide left, which was terrible. But I guess that team, it's like, I feel like it's underappreciated how good that running game was at that time. Because usually if you have a running game like that and you have any kind of a defense, you're probably going to win a national championship.
Yeah. Well, too, we had a really young quarterback too, in Chris.
Right.
And, Chris did a, great job for what he was, thrown into, and
tough situation.
Yeah. But you got to give Miami some credit. I think that might have been the best Miami teams ever assembled. And so it was so I don't know, we looking back on it, you can always point the finger there what happened, but I just it was I remember leaving after my senior year and getting ready to go off to Atlanta to train for the combine, and just feeling worn out. Like that season, just emotionally, physically, like it took a lot out of you, because we wanted so hard after my junior year when we struggled and to get Florida State back on the map. It's like we got to get Florida State back where it's supposed to be. You do feel that pressure when you're there, such a long history of success, and you're like, we can't be the group that lets it fall off. And so there is a big weight there that you have to carry.
I ran into Ron Miller recently, and we were talking about Chris Rix's career and just kind of, there were a lot of things outside of his control, between, the coaching staff, Jeff Bowden, all the situation there, and just all that was kind of happening at that time. Then that season, 2002, also, you had the Adrian McPherson stuff going on, and it was like a TMZ show. Like this is before social media. I can't imagine like this environment if that 2002 season was happening. But were you just ready to get out of here at that point, or did you? What was it like?
Yeah, I think I was ready. I don't want to say get out of here, man. I love Florida State, and I certainly didn't want to. I didn't want to leave with that attitude at all. Like, very proud of what we did. Love the school, and so I think it more just hurt that we couldn't finish strong.
When people ask you about your time at Florida State, because I'm sure now people, when they find out who you are and your career, is it automatically just telling stories from the people just want to ask questions about 98 or 99, 2000, or do people ask you about like what went wrong? I mean, like when people ask you about Florida State today?
All they care about is all they care about is the championships,
right?
All the success we had, and honestly, I tell I coach. I've been coaching. I'm the director of football for a high school, kind of a private homeschool football league up here, and I always tell the kids, like, look, eventually you're not going to remember any of these games, and most people are going to forget about them. I remember in '99 after we won the national championship. By the time we got back to our hotel rooms, you turn on ESPN and they're already talking about who's the favorite for next year.
Right.
And it's just kind of so. They like to see the national championship ring and they like to talk about that. But a lot of the questions I get is what it's like. What's it like? What's it like to run on that field at Doak Campbell and to play in front of all those people? And are you still friends with your teammates to this day? And who's the best player you played against? All this different type of stuff. And so it's less about the, success, closer to it, a few years removed, you'd have people asking, hey, what happened? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out too. So,
right. And you should have said, hey, and you have no idea what's going to come in 2018 and 19. Enjoy
this.
So you met your wife at Florida State, or did you meet her before?
So I met her at, I started to go to church my senior year at Ron Miller's church, and I met her there. And we didn't start dating, though, till my second year with the Chiefs. And so she called me up out of nowhere. Like, all I'd ever done up to that point is say hi to her at church. We didn't really have any relationship at all. But her family's from Springfield, Missouri.
Okay.
She called me up my second year just to ask if I could get her some tickets for her and her family. She was coming home for Christmas. And so I gave her and her family tickets to the game. I think we were playing the Browns. And anyways, I ended up going to dinner with her and her family the night before the game. And her dad told me he had a lot of hunting property here in Springfield. And so just asked me if I wanted to come hunt. So I was like, I'm in. So my joke to this day is I told my wife all the time I fell in love with her dad before.
And you guys came back from how many kids do you have?
We have 5. Yeah, we got 5 kids, and
that's awesome.
My oldest 2 are going to be graduating this year. They're going to Missouri State, and after visiting Florida State for the Charleston Southern game, that was the first time they've been back for a regular season game. And I told them, I was like, with the year we've had, the crowd wasn't as we got to get them back for a night game, but they were all begging, can we go to Florida State? I'm like, I don't know, that out-of-state tuition
right.
It's a little different.
No kid. Tell me about it, buddy. Yeah. All my kids are going in-state in Florida. So that was cool because I saw some of the pictures you posted from coming to that game. Was that the first time? How many games have they been? Have you been back to, and how many games have they been to?
That was the first game they had been to, and
Oh
so
wow.
yeah, we took them all back when we lived. We moved to Boca Raton. We lived in Boca Raton for 7 years, and I had a business down there, and I was doing ministry and coaching football with Clay Shiver at Boca Raton Christian School. And so we had a blast down there. It was super fun working with Clay, and me and him are still really good friends to this day. And but we took them to the 2014, I think, spring game after they won the national title.
Oh wow.
And so that was really fun for them. But other than that, I went to the 2009 game against South Florida for the 99
Oh
reunion.
no.
That was the last time.
I can't. I didn't remember. That was a 99 reunion game.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was kind of I think that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back that game, where kind of everything started to transition began. So,
right.
But yeah, so that was the first game we've been back, and I couldn't believe how much the campus has changed, man. I barely recognize the place.
I mean, it's nuts, right? That whole college town area, and it's completely
great.
different. So did you like call ahead? Did you get a tour? Did they get to go in the Moore Center and see? I'm sure they've got stuff with the Chiefs and stuff. I mean, did you get it?
So we were in Panama City Beach for the organization that I run. We had the homeschool national football tournament is there every year. And so we were there. So I called Clint Purvis and said, hey, I'm not coaching this year. I'm just the director. So on Saturday, I can come over to the game, can find me some tickets to buy. And he did and got us. But we didn't get there in time to really do a tour. I'm probably going to take him back next year to get to do something like that.
That'd be awesome. So when one thing I was curious about, like what your perspective of was you coming out of college, because, your senior year, again, like, you're an All-American, and I think Mel Kiper had you on his big board of like, top 20 picks or whatever. You end up going in the 4th round. Did you know that was going to happen? And people thought you were going to be a first-round pick. What was that process like in going through it at the time?
Yeah, it was confusing, and so just trying to, because even my agent was like, yeah, late first round, maybe early second is kind of what he was hearing. And then on draft day, it happens, and nobody calls your phone on that day.
Right.
It's just kind of like, man, what's going on, and try to figure it all out. But
do you get information? Are they explaining what's going on, or are you just in the dark?
Well, what was communicated to me by my agent was I got medical red flagged at the combine, and so I had to go back. They had to bring me back to the combine after the original combine for additional medical stuff and just things I didn't even know. They're like, it's like, hey, did you ever have surgery on your shoulder? It's like, no, I separated, but never had surgery. And it's like, what's going on with your back? You got this thing with your foot, and I'm just like, I have no idea, guys. I've just played with it. Some areas never even had any pain with it, but so I got medical flag there. And when I got to Kansas City after they drafted me, they were giving me a tour, and I saw their draft room and their rankings on everybody, and they had me as a first round pick on the board, and so they were really happy to get me in the 4th round.
Right.
But at the time I was kind of, I went through like just kind of dejected, like what happened to, hey, I'm going to prove these guys wrong. Like this really made me angry. But to come to find out, they were right. I get to the NFL and have a really good rookie year, to the point where the spring OTAs, I was working reps at the starting right tackle for the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And about 2 weeks into that, my body just started falling apart. Just started having back and hip issues and knee issues, and I just couldn't ever. It was always something, and I never could get back to where I felt that I could play at a high level. And I ended up hurting my knee my second year or third year at St. Louis, and it was an injury that had already hurt my knee in college, and then so the two injuries combined just made my knee too unstable. And I realized, like, look, I just got married, and I realized all I'm ever going to be, with as beat up as I am, is a backup that's got to travel, move team to team every year. And I was like, even though the money's good, like I want to put roots down and start my family. And so that's when I kind of stepped out of it then.
But how the thing everybody you talk to, any former player, that when they're done playing, they always talk about missing the locker room the most. Like, how difficult was that? I guess though in the NFL, is it different than it would have been
Yeah,
in college?
NFL's completely different than college because the Chiefs, when I got there, we were an older team. NFL standards had a lot of guys in their late 20s and 30s, and so a lot of the guys, you go into the locker room and you're there all day, and they're married with kids, and so it's not like once you're done with practice that day, everybody goes home and goes to their family. It's not like you're going back to the same dorm and
Right.
living together. And so and it is too. And I think it's such a kind of a cutthroat thing. It's like, hey, you get the job done, or there's 100 other people who want it, and we'll get somebody else. And so I also think there's a sense of like, we're not great friends with everybody until they've stuck around for a while. We know they're not going anywhere.
Right.
You
Yeah, you don't want to invest too much time in a relationship with a guy that might be gone
or a guy that's trying to take your job.
Right.
So it's a little more insecurity there, and so it doesn't compare at all to the camaraderie in the college locker room, and so big difference there.
So when you get done, do you go right into coaching? What was
no? So when I got done, I actually started working for ministry there at Kansas City, and we did that for I think 4 years. And so I was working at it's funny. I was working at a university there doing campus ministry at a university there in Kansas City. I won't say what it was, but it was an NAIA school.
Mm-hmm.
And all the football guys were coming to the ministry meetings anyway. So I went and told the coach, I said, hey, my ministry pays my salary. I'll come coach for free.
Oh, wow.
At NAIA school, like anything you want me to, I'll coach tight ends, whatever, just to be around the guys and help coach. And, he's like, no, thank you. Like, where are you going to get a coach for free? Like, I'll coach for free. It's like, and so I tried to get into it there, but I didn't really get into coaching until we moved to South Florida to work with Clay Shiver and his wife Ty down there doing ministry. I ended up opening up a gym there, and then Clay got a teaching gig and became the head coach at Boca Christian School.
Right.
And so he said, hey, you want to come coach with me? I was like, absolutely. And so I was his offensive coordinator for a few years. And we had so much fun. I mean,
really?
It was a blast. We had him doing mat drills, that we did at Florida State. These kids didn't know what hit them, Two old guys out there back in our day. This is what we did, So.
What kind of offense were you running?
Oh, we didn't have very much talent. So we ran the wing T. And so, and to make it, they're always asking to run the shotgun and run the spread. So all I did was back the quarterback up, put him in the pistol, and we still ran the wing T. But then because he was getting the shotgun snap, oh yeah, look how cool we are. But no, it was fun. We took a team. They hadn't won a game in 2 years, and then our second year there, our first year there, they won 3 games, and then our next year, I think we went 10-1. And so. Wow. Yeah, and I think a lot of it too. We just got a lot of good players to come out because they were excited to be coached by 2, former NFL guys, and so
right.
Getting players is always the biggest thing. Any scheme works when you got the right guys.
100%. People like this past season for Florida State, everybody's killing Norvell with play calling, this, that, and I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. What do you? Sometimes there's no plays that are going to make up for. If you're lacking in this many areas, but so you guys moved to Missouri. Her family's there, so is that what drew you guys to?
Yeah, we were in South Florida for 7 years, and with 4 kids, we had 4 kids at the time in South Florida. I was working I think 60, 70 hours a week, and it's just expensive down there. They got
sure.
They just wore us out. So I used to always come back to Springfield to go hunting, and I was up here for hunting season. Said, hey. Called my wife and I said, hey, why don't we move up here? This is how I've always wanted to raise my family. It's got kind of up here, it's kind of got like a panhandle, North Florida, South Georgia type of feel.
Right.
And so, so we ended up moving up here, and they had a really successful homeschool football team. We homeschool our kids. And so when I moved up here, I started coaching with them immediately, and was defensive coordinator for 3 years, and then head coach for 4 years, and now I'm the director. I stepped away from coaching because all my my older kids, my older boys, my oldest son decided to play soccer, and my next son decided to play basketball. So they don't even play football. So I'm like, I can't be coaching other people's kids, and
Right.
missing all my other kids' stuff as much as I love coaching.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, we've been up here now for I think right at 7-8 years.
And you won the homeschool national championship. If you just explain, like, how does it, in terms of like homeschool football, is it still zoned by districts, or like how does it work?
Yeah. So in Missouri, the way it works is we're what they're called MISHA approved competition. So we're allowed to play against public schools in Missouri, but we're not allowed to compete in the playoffs. And a lot of reason is that because homeschool kids, we have kids that come from 2 hours away
Gotcha.
be a part of our program. And so you can't really, there's not really a zone. You can't district us so that's why they do that. So we'll play 4 or 5 public schools during the year, and then we'll drive to other surrounding states and play other homeschool teams. This year we put together what we called the Homeschool Football Classic, and we actually played our first game. We had 4 or 8 homeschool teams play their first game in Dallas Cowboys Stadium.
Wow.
This year. So that was a really good experience for these kids. But there's some good football. You hear homeschool football and it's just kind of like, oh, what,
right.
How bad is that? But we've had some, in some years it is bad, but we've had some really good kids. One of our opponents from Oklahoma had a kid that signed with the University of Oklahoma, a defensive end. He was the best high school football player I've ever seen. And,
wow.
He's on he's 6'5" and 235-pound defensive end and could just run like a track star. And but anyway, so it's pretty good football. And so the way it works is they take all the homeschool teams from out the country. They take their max preps rankings.
Okay.
Their head-to-head battles. They pick the top 20 teams. You go to Florida. The top 4 teams play for the national championship. So you'll play 2 games in a week for the top 4 teams, and the winner is the national champion.
What was that like, man? Winning it.
Well, to be honest, I'm driving to the game, and with my other coaches and stuff, and I was sweating, so nervous. And I told them, I was like, guys, I played in 2 national championship games. I played in the NFL. Like, I have never been more nervous than I am right now as a coach. It was in North Florida around Thanksgiving, and so it was a little cold. So I had a sweater on. I'm sweating through the sweater like nerves. So I think winning as a coach and doing that it's more nerve wracking because you can't get on the field and do anything,
right.
Right. And so you don't have that outlet. But it was probably one of the most fun sports achievements that I've had. Helping those guys and being able to lead that team as they were a great bunch of kids and win that national championship. And see how happy they were and how happy our community was. And so it was a blast. And I love coaching. If I could coach, in a way like college or something like that, where I, didn't have to be away from my family so much, I'd do it in a heartbeat, but maybe one day.
So do all your kids play sports, and what kind of sports dad are you when you're not coaching them?
So I'm pretty laid back, I would say. So I realize I kind of see high school sports for what it is. It's the most pure, most fun sports is going to be. And I want it to be that for my kids. And so I'm not a yeller, screamer. I'm not saying, hey, you should have done this or you should have done that. I'm not yelling at the refs. And other parents will be like, why is he so calm? And I ask my wife that all the time. Even when I coach, I'm not a yeller.
Really?
I'm not snapping at the refs and stuff. And it's because it's about the kids. And
right.
Got to put it in perspective. Like most of the kids we coach, and even my own kids, my middle son may want to go on and try to play basketball somewhere, but who knows if that's going to happen. I want them to learn all the lessons, that sports can provide and enjoy it, have fun, because it seems like, when you're playing sports, you got forever, but it's over quick. So enjoy it while you can. So I'm pretty laid back, supportive. I don't criticize my, kids too much or anything. I just say, hey man, I love watching you play, man. You played really hard. This one play you made was great, man. And so I'm pretty laid back as far as that goes.
That's awesome. I was not great as a sports parent. My daughter played basketball, and I ran into this kid, middle school girls basketball, man. The officials sometimes it's, old men or young kids. And I ran into this dude at a FSU baseball game, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I used to ref your daughter's middle school games." And I was so mortified. I was like, it's like, oh no, oh no, that was not good. Because I just, you just want your kid to succeed. You want them, and I know some parents live vicariously through their kids, which is not good. But I felt like it was more just, you see them do stuff in practice, and you like want it so bad for them to translate to a game, and then when it doesn't, or you feel like you get a bad call, man, I was the worst. I was the worst. I needed to. I would apologize to my daughter all the time, and I still do. But
Yeah.
anyway, good. I'm good for you, man. That's awesome that you're able to do that. So what does the future look like? I mean, do you feel like this is like you're director of the program now? Like, what do you still do you have an itch to do more? Like as your kids get older, do you think you'll get back more
Well,
into?
so my youngest son is 12. He's actually my only kid that looks like me. They all look like on my wife's side of the family. So
That's
he is my twin. If you look on that picture I posted on Facebook with my family, he looks just like me.
right.
So I don't. He's going to play 7th grade football next year. So I'm contemplating maybe stepping down as director and just being the 7th grade offensive line coach. I don't really want to be a head coach right away again. I just want to. My main focus, as much as I love to coach, I just want to be present for my kids because my 2 oldest ones, they're leaving this year, and it's happened so quick. I want to drink it all in. So I may go back and help coach my youngest son in 7th grade O-line next year. So that could be fun. But my wife, she goes, "You love coaching so much. Why don't you go coach in college?" I was like, "Well, honey, if I go coach in college, I will be gone all the time. Like you'll be here with 5 kids. I'll never be home except maybe a week after recruiting's done, and the signing day's over or whatever, which I don't know if that ever ends now. But, and she looked at me and she goes, "Well, how much money would you make?"
Yeah,
So
there's a trade-off.
yeah.
Man, could you even imagine like what like with NIL in the world, like I mean, I'm sure you think about it, and you guys probably all think about it, what it would have been like back then. Maybe these kids, especially in offensive tackles, they're saying are like priced right behind quarterbacks.
As they should be.
Of course. I mean, it's just can you even put your mind in the bodies of these kids who are dealing with this stuff right now, and the money they're making is 18, 19-year-olds, and what that
No,
must be like.
I can't fathom it because when I got to the NFL, you have guys there who
Right.
make money for the first time, and a lot of them don't handle it well. And if they don't, if it doesn't necessarily mean they do something bad off the field because they have a lot of money. Some guys do, but I think it affects your psyche so much. Is so much of what drives you in football is trying to prove yourself and trying to achieve some goal. And then when you're handed all this money, I think a lot of times you can lose some of that hunger. I mean, the only times you see guys in the NFL get a big contract and then the next year they fall off. And I can't imagine being 18 and getting what some of these kids are getting, and the vultures that come swooping around. And I couldn't imagine juggling it. And when I was in college, I think we got like a $700 check every month, and like 250 of that went to rent. And the rest was just getting into trouble. Money,
dude. I remember like when you guys would like back in your day, when kids would come on visits and you'd host them, like maybe they give you a few dollars to take a kid out or whatever. Now, like when these kids come on recruiting visits, like they're getting hosted by players that have real money.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Jordan Travis had real money when he was here his last year. So when they would host recruits, I mean, he could take them out. Like they, it's wild.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the NIL. Like, I think, I wish I could have made a little money off my name, image, and likeness when I was in college, especially look back. I mean, it does take a physical toll, but at the same time, like I got a college degree. I never would have got a college education if it wasn't for Florida State and giving me a scholarship. I didn't like school, but, having to go there and then keeping my feet to the fire and I'm so thankful for that. And so I think, there's so much money. The NCAA really blew it. Their lack of leadership is what's caused all this, problem. If they would have been doing profit sharing or something, just a little nugget, years ago,
anything. Yeah.
It would have stopped a lot of this snowball. But I'm glad to see players getting paid. I just wish they would attach a contract to it, to where they can't just, up and leave without any cost, or a buyout from another school. And I think the transfer portal is a real big issue that needs to be tackled.
Right. So you mentioned you haven't been able to come back to many games, and especially still coaching and having a family and 5 kids and all that. Like, when Florida State's playing, do you have to watch it, or do you watch it later? Like, what's your Florida State viewing experience like now?
Yeah, I don't miss a game. So if I don't have a kid's sporting event to go to, we're in front of the TV. And I don't really like having people over to watch either, because I get too into it. If things aren't going well, I won't be a very good host. So yeah, I'm super. I love Florida State, man, and I love Coach Norvell. And this year was such a weird, just kind of out of nowhere. Like, you don't understand it, and so tough year to go through. But man, we're all in. So I don't miss anything.
Awesome, dude. Well, man, I really appreciate you taking the time. And, enjoyed, everybody can't, follow you on Facebook, but if they could, it would be cool. 'Cause I love your wife's, I don't know if she's a writer in her professional life or not, but she is an awesome writer, man. The stuff she writes about your guys' family is really awesome.
I appreciate that. She actually just came to me last week, and everybody's been begging her to write a book. And she finally came to me last week. She goes, I think it's time to start writing a book. And so
that's awesome, man. She really should. Her writing is awesome.
She's got all the talent, and I'm thankful that all my kids got her brains. And so,
and she's another proud Florida State alum. So Florida State did some good things, put some good things into the world.
Yeah, I love that place. I'm so thankful for my time there. And man, it was life changing. And you don't really. That's why I wish the guys there have kind of a longer term, view of what their college experience is really going to mean. The relationships they make there, the message that Coach Norvell preaches. It's like that message will carry you so far through life. As far as in your professional career and everything that you do. And so, man, there's so much value there to be had other than NIL money. And so it's like I wish more kids would understand that.
And just the last thing. So you got there for the kind of the tail end of Coach Bowden's tenure. Not the tail end. You still had 6-7 more years when you were done. But how often do you reflect on just getting to play for Coach Bowden and some of the things maybe he said or what you got to see?
Well, you kind of take it for granted when I was there. You kind of take it for granted, and then the older you get, you start to appreciate it more. Because he was a special guy. And then when he died, like it hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt like I lost a grandpa, and there was that moment when I realized like how much he meant, to me. And so, man, he was a special guy. So, so very thankful that I got to play with him and just his influence. And man, even my faith, I wouldn't have the faith I have today if it wasn't for him and the culture that he established there and making it a faith-friendly program,
Right.
And so I'm truly grateful for him, and, one day get to see him again in heaven. I can't wait for it.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, I appreciate your time, and stay in touch. And hopefully next time you're in Tallahassee, which won't be too far away, we'll get to meet up in person, man. I really enjoyed your talking with you, and best wishes in everything you do, Brett. I really appreciated talking to you today.
Thanks, Ira. I love all the stuff you guys do. When you and Jeff and Corey get together, man, it's so fun. I'll have it on the court just laughing. Man, you guys do a great job.
We have a good time. Hopefully next season we'll have better things to talk about.
Don't let Corey get offended that I have a hard time remembering his name.
He will, believe me, I will definitely give him a hard time about it. So, all right, dude. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, Ira.
See you, man.